The grand chamber of the Zorthian Empire glowed with golden light, the air thick with pride and arrogance. Alien generals stood in rows, their sharp armor shining under the crystal ceiling. In the center of the room stood Emperor Corran, his voice echoing like thunder as he spoke to his people. "The age of fear is over," he declared, his reptilian eyes burning with power. "Our new creation, Titan armor, will make us untouchable. No weapon in the galaxy can harm us." The crowd erupted in cheers, their claws clapping against metal floors, chanting the Emperor's name. He raised his hand, signaling for silence, then turned toward a massive screen. "Show them," he said calmly, his mouth curling into a smile. The screen flickered to life, showing a huge training ground deep beneath their planet's surface. In the center stood a single Zorthian soldier wearing the new armor, black and silver plates that shimmered like liquid glass. Around him, heavy cannons aimed and fired. Plasma blasts struck his chest, missiles exploded near his feet, and shockwaves rolled across the field. Yet the soldier stood tall, untouched, his armor glowing faintly blue. Gasps filled the chamber, followed by louder cheers. "See!" the Emperor roared proudly. "No human weapon can break it. No Death Worlder bullet can pierce it. We are gods now!" The generals bowed deeply. "The humans will kneel," one said with a smirk. "If they even dare to fight again," another added. Laughter spread like wildfire across the room. But far beyond their golden walls, hidden deep in the shadows of space, others were watching. On a small blue world, Earth, screens flickered in a dark control room filled with tired eyes and silent faces. The broadcast from the Zorthian Empire played again and again, each loop showing the same soldier, the same armor, the same arrogance. Commander Elias Ward leaned back in his chair, his expression calm but cold. "They really think that armor makes them invincible," he said softly. Dr. Elena Reeves, standing beside him with a datapad in hand, frowned. "Their confidence will kill them," she replied, her tone low. "But their technology, it's advanced. That material, it absorbs plasma, disperses kinetic energy. It's not just metal, it's alive." Elias looked up at the glowing image on the screen. "Then we'll have to teach it how to die," he said quietly. The command room fell silent. Around them, engineers whispered nervously and technicians exchanged looks. The war with the Zorthians had ended years ago, but everyone knew peace with them was temporary. "They've already forgotten what humans can do," Elias continued. "They think we've gone soft. Let's remind them we haven't." He stood, walking to the center of the room, where a large blueprint rested on a digital table. It showed a massive cannon design, labeled in bold letters, Project Hammerlight. Elena smiled faintly, though worry filled her eyes. "You want to bring it online?" she asked. "It's not ready, Elias. The last test melted an entire mountain range." He looked at her with a steady gaze. "Good," he said. "That means we're close." The news spread across Earth's defense network like a spark in dry grass. Every nation agreed. The Zorthians' arrogance could not go unchallenged. Within hours, the old military alliances reactivated. The united Terran fleet came alive once again. Across shipyards, workers moved with quiet determination. The humans didn't need speeches or fanfare. They just needed time, and they knew how to use it well. Meanwhile, on the Zorthian capital, Emperor Corran celebrated his unbreakable army. Cities glowed with banners, showing armored soldiers marching proudly under the Empire's flag. In every broadcast, humans were mocked. Alien children were taught that Earth's people were primitive beasts who fought with fire and iron. In one propaganda video, a Zorthian general laughed while showing a crushed Terran helmet, saying, "This is the past. The future belongs to the armor." The people believed it, every word of it. Only a few scientists whispered doubts behind closed doors. One young researcher dared to speak during a military meeting. "Emperor," he said nervously, "their weapons evolved too fast. We shouldn't underestimate them." The room froze for a moment before the Emperor burst into laughter. "Human weapons," he sneered. "They throw rocks at planets and call it warfare." The young scientist tried again. "But what if they develop something new?" Corran's smile vanished. "If they do," he said coldly, "we will crush them before they can use it." He turned away, his golden cloak sweeping behind him. End of discussion. But far away, in the cold silence of deep space, a small satellite drifted near a dying star. Inside it, hidden from all alien sensors, a human AI transmitted a signal to Earth, a signal that confirmed every boast, every test, every weakness of the Titan armor. The message was simple. They think they're gods now. They've made a mistake. Back on Earth, Commander Elias Ward stood in a dark hangar where the first Hammerlight cannon was being assembled. It was enormous, nearly the size of a skyscraper, powered by compressed stellar plasma. The glowing core pulsed like a miniature sun. Technicians worked in silence as the hum grew louder, the air around it trembling. Elena walked up beside him. "This weapon, it's too much," she whispered. "If we use it, we could break more than their armor." Elias didn't answer at first. He just watched the light flicker across her face. "They built armor to stop fire," he said finally. "So we'll bring the sun." Outside, the sky over the test range darkened as power built within the weapon. Distant mountains shook. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. The cannon fired, and the world turned white. For a moment, it was as if a piece of a star had been unleashed. The blast tore through reinforced targets, vaporized steel, and left behind a crater miles wide. The observers watched in stunned silence. When the light faded, Elias spoke quietly. "Send a message to command," he said. "Tell them humanity has a new answer to their armor." Somewhere in the far reaches of space, a Zorthian communication ship intercepted fragments of that test. The Emperor received the transmission hours later, his face hardening as he watched the footage. For the first time, the great Corran didn't speak. His claws tapped against the armrest of his throne. "Prepare the fleets," he ordered it. Last, his voice colder than ice. "If the humans want war again, we'll give them one." Elias watched the stars that night from the observation deck. "They'll come," he said softly. Elena nodded beside him. "They always do." He turned to her, a faint smile on his face. "Then let's make sure this time they don't come back." The stars reflected in his eyes like distant fires, and somewhere between those burning worlds, the balance of power began to shift once more, slowly, silently, toward Earth. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, a secret human base buzzed with life. Engineers, scientists, and soldiers worked day and night, building something the galaxy had never seen before. Sparks flew, machines hummed, and the air smelled of metal and ozone. At the center of it all stood Dr. Elena Reeves, her eyes fixed on the glowing chamber before her. The chamber held the heart of their weapon, Project Hammerlight. A small sun burned within, contained only by fields of pure magnetic energy. "It's unstable," said one of her assistants nervously, watching the readings spike. "If it breaks containment," Eleanor cut him off sharply, "then Earth won't have to worry about Zorthians anymore. We'll be gone before they arrive," she said, her voice steady but cold. Across the base, Commander Elias Ward walked through the corridors with slow, heavy steps. Every door he passed opened automatically, soldiers saluting as he went by. He didn't smile, didn't nod. His focus was elsewhere. Inside his mind, he replayed the images of the Zorthian broadcast again and again. The arrogance, the laughter, the promise that no human weapon can harm us. He muttered under his breath, "We'll see about that." When he reached the observation deck, he found Elena waiting. "You're early," she said, raising an eyebrow. "Couldn't sleep." he replied, leaning on the railing. The two stared through the reinforced glass at the Hammerlight reactor. Its glow painted their faces in blue and gold. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "Beautiful things are often dangerous," she answered. "Like us." They both fell silent. Outside, a storm raged over the mountains, lightning flashing like distant explosions. The storm didn't bother Elias. It reminded him of war, of chaos, of survival. "How long until the weapon's ready?" he asked. Elena checked her screen. "We're at 93%. We still need a stable energy route for the containment coils. One wrong move, and we'll blow a hole through the planet." Elias smirked slightly. "Then we'll just have to aim it right." She glared at him but didn't argue. Deep down, she knew there was no time left for fear. Hours later, alarms echoed through the base. Technicians ran across the floor shouting, "Energy surge in Chamber 3!" Sparks flew as cables snapped. The Hammerlight reactor pulsed violently, light flickering like a heartbeat. "Shut it down!" Elena yelled. "Now!" But it was too late. The power readings spiked off the charts. For a terrifying moment, everything went white. The walls shook, the floor cracked, and everyone was thrown to the ground. When the light faded, the core still glowed, steady and calm. A stunned silence filled the room. Then one technician whispered, "It's stabilized." Elena stared at the readings in disbelief. "It shouldn't have," she muttered. "We didn't fix the coils." Elias helped her up, eyes locked on the reactor. "Maybe it fixed itself," he said quietly. "Or maybe," she whispered, "it wants to live." The next morning, the world outside the base was silent again. Snow covered the mountains, hiding the damage. Inside, Elena and her team reviewed the data. What they saw made no sense. The Hammerlight core had absorbed the overload, strengthened itself, and improved its own containment matrix. "It's learning," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "It's adapting faster than we can study it." Elias leaned closer. "Then it's exactly what we need. The Zorthians built armor that evolves under fire. We built a weapon that does the same." He looked at the glowing reactor with pride and a trace of fear. "But tell me," he added, "how do you control something that learns?" Elena didn't answer. She didn't have one. That night, Elias stood outside the reactor chamber, staring at it through the glass. The glow seemed different, almost alive, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "You're not afraid, are you?" came a soft voice behind him. It was Elena again. "Afraid?" he repeated, turning to her. "No, I just think it knows we're watching." She walked beside him, folding her arms. "You sound like it's a living thing." He looked back at the light. "Maybe it is." A long silence passed before she said quietly, "You realize if we use this, there's no going back. The Council will call it a war crime." Elias gave a dry laugh. "They called us savages before. Let them call us gods after." A transmission alert suddenly interrupted their conversation. A hologram flickered to life. Admiral Rains of the United Terran Fleet appeared, his face stern. "Commander Ward, the Zorthian fleet has crossed into the Helios sector," he said. "They're testing human borders again." Elias straightened immediately. "Orders, sir?" Rains looked grim. "You're cleared to deploy Hammerlight. The test is over. We're moving to active defense." The hologram vanished, leaving a heavy silence. Elena turned to Elias, eyes wide. "You're not serious?" "It's not ready for field use." He looked at her calmly. "Neither were we when they started the last war." He pressed a button on his wrist console. "Begin weapon mobilization." The next hours moved like a blur. Massive transport ships lifted the reactor into orbit, its light shining through the storm clouds. Soldiers watched in awe as the weapon rose toward the stars. From space, it looked like a burning comet leaving Earth behind. Elena stood in the control room, her hands trembling slightly. "Elias," she said through the comms, "if something goes wrong, then I'll fix it," he replied. "You built the sun. Let me aim it." His voice was steady, but his heart raced. He knew what was coming. As the Hammerlight cannon reached orbit, the system's defense network came online. The stars beyond shimmered with movement, Zorthian ships, fast and bright, scanning the area. They didn't expect resistance. They never did. "Target locked," the AI said in a calm voice. Elias sat in the command chair, his hand hovering over the activation key. For every human they mocked, he whispered. For every colony they burned. Elena's voice came softly through the radio. Make it count. Fire. The hammerlight beam cut across the void like a blade of pure white fire. It struck the leading Zorthian cruiser, tearing through its armor in a heartbeat. The ship vanished in a burst of light, its debris scattering like sparks. The other ships froze, their sensors unable to understand what had happened. For a moment there was only silence. Then chaos erupted. Alien commanders screamed orders. Fleets scattered. The humans watched quietly from their stations, disbelief mixing with pride. It worked, Elena breathed, tears forming in her eyes. Elias exhaled slowly. No, he said softly, staring at the burning wreck. It began. Far away, deep in the Zorthian capital, Emperor Corran received the news. The room fell silent as he watched the footage of his destroyed ship. His claws tightened, cracking the armrest. Impossible, he hissed. Their weapons were primitive. His generals bowed low, trembling. It was something new, my emperor. A weapon that burns like a star. Corran's eyes darkened. Then they have created their own doom, he said coldly. And we will be the ones to deliver it. Back on Earth, the hammerlight reactor dimmed slowly, its power cooling down. Elena leaned against the control desk, exhausted. Elias joined her, his uniform scorched from the battle's heat. You did it, she whispered. No, he said quietly. We did it, but this is only the start. She looked at him, fear mixing with admiration. What happens now? He stared out the viewport at the stars, his face unreadable. Now, he said, we wait for their answer. The glow of hammerlight reflected in his eyes, bright and cold, like a promise of storms yet to come. The stars above the red world of Vorta 9 shimmered as the silence of space was broken by the arrival of a massive alien fleet. Hundreds of Zorthian warships appeared in formation, their hulls gleaming with the reflection of distant suns. Inside the command bridge of the lead vessel, Admiral Krith stood tall, his armor shining with the blue glow of Titan plating. Humans, he said with a sneer, still hiding behind their little colonies. They think one lucky shot makes them strong? His second officer bowed slightly, his voice trembling. Admiral, intelligence reports confirm only one human ship in orbit. A small vessel, designation Valkyrie. The Admiral laughed coldly. A single ship? Then this will be over before lunch. He turned toward the window, his claws tapping the railing. Let the humans see what real power looks like. Far below, on the dusty surface of Vorta 9, the colonists watched the sky burn with light as alien ships entered orbit. Panic spread through the small settlement. Alarms wailed, children cried, and people rushed to underground shelters. Among them, a young soldier named Lena Ward, the niece of Commander Elias Ward, watched the skies with clenched fists. They came again, she whispered. Her superior officer shouted from behind, "Get inside, soldier!" But she didn't move. She was waiting for something or someone. High above, in the cold blackness of space, the UNS Valkyrie drifted quietly. It was a small, sleek warship, barely the size of one Zorthian cruiser. Its hull bore scars from past battles, but its engines hummed with quiet strength. On the bridge, Captain Elias Ward sat in his chair, his face calm as ever. His crew waited for his command, tension hanging in the air. "Sir," said Lieutenant Hara, "enemy fleet confirmed, 300 warships, multiple Titan class." Another officer added, "We're heavily outnumbered, Captain." "Orders?" Elias leaned forward, eyes fixed on the display showing the enemy formation. "They're expecting a fight," he said softly. "Let's give them something they won't forget." The Valkyrie moved silently, its engines flaring to life as it changed course toward the alien Armada. Inside the Zorthian flagship, alarms began to beep. "Incoming human vessel," a technician called out. Admiral Krith frowned. "One ship heading straight for us?" "Fools! Charge the plasma batteries!" The alien fleet adjusted formation, their weapons ready to fire. Krith smirked. "End this before they even get close." The first volley of plasma bolts streaked through the void, bright green arcs of destruction. But the Valkyrie didn't dodge. Instead, a thin golden barrier flickered around it, the ship's new adaptive shield, powered by hammer-light energy. The alien fire hit, exploded in light and vanished harmlessly. Gasps filled the Zorthian bridge. "Admiral!" A soldier shouted. "Their shield absorbed the blast." Krith's eyes widened. "Increase firepower! All ships, destroy that human vessel!" The order echoed across the fleet. Beams of energy, plasma missiles, and magnetic rounds filled space like a storm of fire. But the Valkyrie kept moving, untouched, its engines roaring. Inside, Elias watched the sensors light up with incoming fire. "Status?" he asked. Hara grinned nervously. "Shields at full, sir. They can't even scratch us." Elias nodded slowly. "Good. Now it's our turn." He pressed a single button on his console. The hammer-light cannon, mounted under the Valkyrie's hull, began to glow. The light grew brighter, brighter still, until it looked like a small sun forming beneath the ship. "Target the flagship," Elias ordered. "Let's show them what human engineering can do." The bridge fell silent. Then fire! The beam shot out in total silence, a white streak slicing through the dark void. It hit the Zorthian flagship dead center. For a second, nothing happened. Then the armor began to crack. The Titan plating, believed to be unbreakable, glowed red, then white, before shattering like glass. The explosion was so bright that every ship in orbit dimmed for a heartbeat. When the light faded, the flagship was gone. Only floating debris remained. On the Valkyrie's bridge, no one spoke for several seconds. Then Lieutenant Hara let out a shaky laugh. We did it," but Elias's face stayed cold. "No," he said quietly. "They'll be back. And they'll come angry." Panic spread through the Zorthian ranks. Ships broke formation, commanders shouted over comms, and orders clashed. Admiral Krith, barely alive on an escape craft, stared at the destruction of his fleet. "Impossible," he whispered. "They broke Titan armor. With one shot." His second officer coughed, blood dripping from his mouth. "Admiral, what do we tell the Emperor?" Krith looked out at the distant stars, voice trembling. "Tell him the humans have become something else." Back on Vorta 9, Lena Ward watched the sky as the alien ships retreated. The colony's defense towers stood silent, but the people began to emerge from shelters, confused yet hopeful. "They're leaving," someone shouted. "They're retreating." Lena smiled faintly, tears glimmering in her eyes. She whispered, "Uncle Elias, you did it." Hours later, the Valkyrie drifted among the wreckage. Fires burned in the remains of alien ships, floating like dying stars. Elias stood by the observation window, staring into the debris field. "Captain," said his second officer softly, "should we pursue them?" He shook his head. "No, let them run. Veer is the best message." He turned away, walking toward the command chair. "Prepare a transmission to High Command," he ordered. "Tell them Hammerlight works, but we'll need more. They'll be coming back, and next time they won't underestimate us." On the far side of the galaxy, in the imperial palace of the Zorthian Empire, Emperor Corran watched the footage in silence. The holographic recording showed his mighty fleet destroyed, his flagship vaporized, and his proud admiral lost. Around him, his council trembled. "My emperor," one said weakly, "the humans, they've created a weapon beyond logic." Another stammered, "It burns through Titan armor like air." The emperor slowly stood, his golden robe shimmering under the dim light. His voice was calm but filled with venom. "So be it. They have unleashed the fire of their world upon us." He turned to his generals. "Then we will answer with the fire of ours. Summon every scientist, every builder, every soldier. The next war begins now." Back aboard the Valkyrie, Elias sat in the quiet of his quarters. The faint hum of the ship surrounded him. He looked at the photograph on his desk, Earth from orbit, bright and blue. "We wanted peace," he whispered to himself. "But they chose war." His communicator beeped softly. It was Elena Reeves from the research base. "Elias," her voice came through, tired but steady. "We saw the battle. The weapon worked." He smiled faintly. "Too well," he said. "They'll come for us now." There was a pause before she spoke again. "Then we build something stronger." He nodded. "Yes," he said quietly. Because this was just the beginning. He turned to look out the viewport again, the stars reflected in his eyes like distant sparks of warning. Somewhere far beyond those stars, another storm was already forming, and humanity was ready to face it. The Zorthian capital world was drowning in chaos. The great halls of the imperial palace trembled under the sound of angry voices. Generals shouted, scientists argued, and ambassadors demanded answers. At the center of it all sat Emperor Corran, his expression hard as stone. "Silence," he commanded, and the room obeyed instantly. His claws tapped the armrest of his throne, his cold eyes scanning the faces before him. "One human ship destroyed our fleet," he said slowly, his voice echoing in the hall. "One ship burned through Titan armor. Explain how." The scientists shifted nervously. One of them stepped forward, his scales pale from fear. "My Emperor, the reports are confusing. The weapon they used was not plasma, not fusion, not antimatter. It behaved like a star itself." The Emperor's expression darkened. "A star?" The scientist swallowed hard. "Yes, Majesty. They call it hammerlight. We believe it draws power from compressed stellar cores." A murmur swept through the room. The Emperor rose to his feet. "You mean to tell me," he growled, "that humans have learned to harness suns?" No one answered. The silence was his answer. He turned sharply to his generals. "Then we will respond in kind. If they bring suns to battle, we will bring the night itself." His tail slammed against the floor, echoing through the hall. "Begin Project Eclipse." The generals saluted, though fear lingered in their eyes. None dared to ask what Project Eclipse truly was. Far away on Earth's Defense Command, Commander Elias Ward watched the same events unfold through intercepted transmissions. The room was dark except for the glow of the screens. "They're not retreating," said Lieutenant Hara. "They're regrouping, building something." Elias's eyes stayed fixed on the alien images. "Something big," he murmured. Dr. Elena Reeves appeared on another screen, her voice calm but tense. "We're decoding fragments of their new weapon project. The name translates to Eclipse." Elias frowned. "Sounds poetic and dangerous." Elena nodded. "If they're trying to counter Hammerlight, they'll go after its energy core. They'll try to shut it down instead of breaking it." "So," Elias said quietly, "they're adapting." "Exactly," she replied. "Just like us." Meanwhile, deep in the industrial heart of the Zorthian Empire, factories glowed with blue fire. Gigantic machines forged strange black crystals that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Engineers whispered rumors that these crystals could swallow energy itself. One of the workers, a young Zorthian named Tira, watched the process with unease. "How can something that eats light protect us?" she asked her supervisor. The older engineer chuckled bitterly. "It won't protect us, girl," he said. "It will destroy everything it touches." She frowned. "Then why build it?" The supervisor glanced at the cameras and lowered his voice. "Because the Emperor doesn't care who wins anymore. He only cares who burns first." Back on Earth, the Terran fleet continued preparing. Hundreds of ships were being upgraded with the Hammerlight cores, but resources were running thin. "We can't mass-produce it fast enough," Elena admitted during a briefing. "Each weapon requires months of calibration." Elias looked over the holographic map of the galaxy. "Then we'll make it count. We'll hit them before they finish whatever they're building." He turned to his officers. "Set a course for Zorthian space." Gasps filled the room. "Sir, that's suicide," said Hara. "We don't even know where their weapon is located." Elias smiled faintly. "Then we'll make them show us." The human fleet moved quietly through the void, lights dimmed, engines silent. They were ghosts in the dark. On the Valkyrie's bridge, tension hung heavy. "We're entering the edge of their territory," Hara reported. Multiple sensor readings ahead. "Hold position," Elias ordered. "Let's see if they come to us." Moments later, the radar blipped, several massive signatures approaching fast. "Zorthian ships," said Hara. "Big ones." The main screen lit up, showing alien dreadnoughts the size of cities, each covered in dark, crystal-like plating. The ships didn't glow. They absorbed the light around them. "So that's Eclipse," Elias muttered. The two fleets faced each other in silence for a long moment. Then a transmission came through. The face of Admiral Krith, still scarred from his last defeat, appeared on the screen. "Humans," he hissed, "your time is over. Your light will die today." Elias leaned back in his chair. "Funny," he said with a calm smile. "We were thinking the same thing." Krith bared his fangs. "You cannot destroy what consumes energy itself." Elias nodded slightly. "Maybe, but let's test that theory." He cut the channel. Fire at will. Dozens of human ships opened fire, beams of pure white light striking the alien vessels. But the Eclipse armor absorbed it all, growing darker, thicker, feeding on the attack. "It's not working," shouted Hara. "They're feeding on our power." "Then stop feeding them," Elias ordered. "Shut down all main cannons." The humans went silent. The battlefield dimmed, and for a moment only the stars shone. The alien ships advanced slowly, their black armor rippling like liquid shadows. Krith laughed over the comms. "Is that it? You surrender already?" Elias didn't answer. He turned to his engineer. "Charge the Hammerlight core to full," he said softly. "But don't fire. Release the containment field." The engineer froze. "Sir, if we release it—" "Do it," Elias snapped. "That's an order." The Valkyrie's hull began to glow faintly as energy built up inside the ship. The crew watched in fear as the lights flickered. "Containment release in 10 seconds, the AI warned. Hara looked at Elias. "Captain, are you trying to blow us up?" Elias smiled grimly. "No, I'm trying to starve them." When the containment field opened, a surge of energy poured out, not in a beam, but as a wave of raw light. The Eclipse armor tried to absorb it, but the energy wasn't stable. It was alive, chaotic, uncontrollable. The alien ships began to shake violently, their armor cracking under the overload. Grith's voice turned from arrogance to panic. "What are you doing? Stop it." Elias whispered, "Teaching you why humans fear the dark." The black ships began to implode, sucked into their own collapsing armor. One by one, the Dreadnoughts vanished, their energy devoured by the very weapon they trusted. When the light faded, the Valkyrie drifted among the wreckage, smoke rising from its hull. The crew sat in stunned silence. "Captain," Hara said quietly, "we survived." Elias looked out at the burning remains. "Barely," he replied. "But they didn't." On the Zorthian capital, Emperor Corran watched in disbelief as the feed from Admiral Krith's fleet went dark. His claws dug into the throne, cracking the metal. "Eclipse failed," he whispered. His scientists stood frozen, afraid to move. "It wasn't the weapon," one dared to say. "It was them, the humans. They turned energy against itself." The Emperor stood slowly. "Then they have declared total war," he said, his voice trembling with rage. "And we will answer it with extinction." Back aboard the Valkyrie, Elias sat quietly in the dimmed bridge. Elena's voice came through the comms. "You're alive," she said, relief flooding her tone. "Barely," he replied. "But we found their secret." She hesitated. "And it failed," he said simply. "Now they'll build something worse." Elena was silent for a long moment before saying softly, "Then so will we." Elias looked out at the stars, his reflection glowing faintly in the glass. "Let them come," he whispered. "We're not afraid of the dark anymore." The Martian sky was the color of blood that morning. Dust storms swirled across the red plains, and distant thunder rolled from the mountains. The human fleet hovered above the planet's surface, engines silent but ready. Inside the UNS Valkyrie, the command deck buzzed with quiet tension. Commander Elias Ward stood before the main display, his eyes locked on the incoming wave of enemy ships. "They're here," said Lieutenant Hara, her voice barely above a whisper. "Zorthian fleet, over 10,000 vessels. Biggest formation we've ever seen." Elias didn't flinch. "Good," he said. "Let them come." Down in the Martian tunnels, soldiers and engineers worked frantically to finish the final defensive systems. Giant cannons, buried beneath the planet's surface, hummed with blue light, the Hammerlight planetary network. Dr. Elena Reeves walked among the teams, her face pale but determined. "We need every reactor online," she shouted. "If one fails, the entire chain collapses." A young technician called out, "Ma'am, we're pushing the coils beyond safety limits." Elena's reply was sharp. "Safety isn't a luxury anymore. If they reach orbit, no one's safe." Above, the first alien ships broke formation and began descending. The Zorthian flagship Obsidian Crown led the assault. Inside it stood Emperor Koran himself, armored in black crystal plating that pulsed with energy. His cold eyes glared at the blue planet below. "End them," he ordered. "Burn their world until no dust remains." His generals bowed and began the attack. The human fleet formed up around Mars, ships aligning in perfect synchronization. "All units maintain orbit," Elias commanded. "Wait for my signal." The alien armada unleashed its fury first. Plasma storms and fusion blasts tore through the sky, lighting up the void. Explosions rippled across the upper atmosphere, but the humans held their ground. "Shields holding at 70%, shouted Hera. Elias nodded calmly. "Open the surface gates." Deep beneath the Martian crust, the ground began to tremble. Massive panels opened, revealing enormous cannons glowing with hammer-light energy. A second later, a burst of pure white fire shot upward, slicing through space like a god's sword. The beam struck 3 alien dreadnoughts in a single hit, tearing them apart. Cheers erupted across the fleet. "Direct hit!" someone cried. Elias smiled faintly. "That's one," but the celebration didn't last. A new signal appeared on the sensors, something enormous. Elena saw it first from the underground monitors. "Elias," she said over comms, her voice shaking, "they brought something else. It's not a ship, it's a fortress." The screen flickered, showing a gigantic sphere descending from orbit. It was the size of a moon, covered in rotating rings of energy. "What is that?" Hera whispered. Elias's expression darkened. "Their final weapon," he said quietly. The Zorthian fortress opened, revealing thousands of energy ports aimed at Mars. Inside the alien control room, Emperor Koran smiled cruelly. "You broke my armor," he said, watching the planet below. "Now I will break your sun." With one gesture, the fortress fired. A red beam of energy tore through space, hitting Mars's surface. The ground shook violently. Mountains crumbled, cities turned to glass, and dust filled the sky. Elena grabbed a railing as alarms screamed around her. "Containment fields are breaking," she shouted. "We're losing power." Elias's voice came through the comm, calm but urgent. "Divert everything to the core grid. We can't let them reach the reactors." The hammer-light cannons fired again, hitting the fortress head-on, but the beams scattered harmlessly against its shields. "Our weapons aren't strong enough," Hera yelled. Elias stared at the display, mind racing. "Then we make them stronger." He turned to the communications officer. "Patch me through to Dr. Reeves." Her voice crackled over the radio. "Elias, what are you thinking?" "We'll channel all the power from the orbiting ships into the planetary core," he said. "Overload it. Turn the entire network into one massive shot." Elena froze. "That would destroy Mars." "I know," he said softly, "but it'll take them with it." Silence filled the comm line for a long moment. Then Elena whispered, "You always choose the impossible." He smiled faintly. "And it always works." She took a deep breath. "Fine, I'll reroute the grid. Just make it count." "Fleet command to all ships," Elias said into the intercom. "Prepare for energy transfer. This is not a retreat. This is our stand." Across the stars, human voices responded as one, for Earth, for the colonies, for humanity. One by one, the ships dimmed as their power flowed into Mars. The planet began to glow, its core pulsing with light. The ground split open, rivers of molten fire cutting across the red sands. The fortress above shuddered, its sensors struggling to read the sudden surge. Emperor Koran snarled. "What are they doing?" His aide trembled. "My Emperor, the planet, it's overloading." "No," Koran hissed. "They wouldn't dare." But they did. Elias stood at the command deck, watching the glow rise from below. "All energy converging," Hera reported. "We're at critical limit." "Hold it," Elias said quietly. "Not yet." The alien fortress fired another beam, tearing through the atmosphere, hitting directly above the human command post. Explosions rippled through the orbiting ships. "We're losing hull integrity," cried an officer. "Hold it," Elias repeated. Sweat ran down his face, his hands gripping the armrest. "Hold," then his voice dropped to a whisper. "Now!" The Hammerlight network fired all at once. A blinding wave of white and blue light erupted from Mars, flooding space. The energy struck the Zorthian fortress dead center. Its shields flared, then shattered. The armor melted, the energy rings broke apart, and the entire structure collapsed in on itself. The explosion was so massive that it could be seen from Earth. For a few seconds, Mars turned into a miniature sun. Then darkness followed. When the light faded, silence returned. The Zorthian fleet was gone, vaporized. Only fragments of metal drifted in the void. On the damaged Valkyrie, emergency lights flickered as the crew regained control. "Captain," Hera said weakly, "we did it. The fortress is gone." Elias leaned back, exhausted. "And so is Mars," he said quietly. The red planet's surface was cracked and glowing, its core collapsing inward. Elena's voice came faintly through the static. "Elias, are you alive?" "Still here," he replied. "You?" "Barely," she said. "You really did it." He smiled faintly. "No, we did it." Hours later, the surviving human ships gathered in orbit around the dying planet. The soldiers watched silently as Mars faded into darkness, its light gone, but its legacy burning bright. Elias stood by the window, his reflection dim but steady. "They thought armor made them gods," he murmured. "Now they know what it's like to stand before one." Hera looked at him with tired eyes.
"What now, sir?"
He turned toward her, his expression unreadable. "Now," he said, "we rebuild. Because this war isn't over." Far away, deep in the ruins of the Zorthian capital, a single distress beacon flickered. Inside the wrecked palace, Emperor Koran's eyes opened slowly, glowing red. His lips curved into a grim smile. "You destroyed a world to stop me," he whispered, his voice like a hiss in the dark. "Then I will destroy a galaxy to end you." The ruins of Mars still glowed faintly in the blackness of space, a ghost of what once was. Fragments of ships, molten rock and ash, drifted quietly around the dying planet. Humanity had won, but at a cost so heavy that silence felt like mourning. On the damaged UNS Valkyrie, Commander Elias Ward stood before the main viewport, his reflection pale against the shattered red world below. "We saved Earth," he said softly, "but we lost Mars." Beside him, Lieutenant Hara replied in a tired voice, "Sir, we also lost half the fleet. There's barely anything left to fight with." Elias nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "We'll rebuild. We always do." In the underground command bunker on Earth, Dr. Elena Reeves stared at the data streaming across her console. The readings were terrifying. Massive radiation spikes, gravitational shifts, and strange signals from the edge of the system. "That can't be right," she whispered. Her assistant frowned. "Is it debris from the Zorthian fortress?" She shook her head. "No, it's something else." "Something alive?" Before she could say more, the entire room shook. Lights flickered, alarms screamed, and the comms crackled with a voice from space. "This is Valkyrie." Elias's voice came through. "We've got incoming, unknown vessel, massive energy reading. It's not one of theirs." Elena's blood ran cold. "Elias, get out of there!" But it was too late. The void outside the Valkyrie split open like a wound. A massive ship emerged, black, silent, and impossibly large. It dwarfed everything in the system, blocking out the stars. Its surface shifted like liquid metal, glowing with strange patterns. Hara whispered, "What is that?" Elias didn't answer. His gut already knew. "That's not a ship," he said quietly. "That's him." Deep within the monstrous vessel, Emperor Koran opened his eyes. His body was no longer flesh, but something fused with the same dark crystal that had powered Project Eclipse. His voice echoed through the alien halls. "They burned my empire," he growled, "but I'm not a man anymore. I am the storm." The ship responded to his voice like a living thing. "Target Earth," he commanded. "Let them feel what I felt." On Earth, panic erupted across every command center. The alien vessel's shadow fell over the moon, its energy levels rising beyond measure. "It's drawing power from the remnants of the fortress," Elena realized in horror. "He's feeding on what's left of Mars." She opened a direct line to Elias. "You can't fight that thing. It's not just a ship, it's a weapon with a soul." Elias's voice came back, calm but heavy. "Then we'll give it something to choke on." He turned to his crew. "We're outgunned, outnumbered, and out of time. But if we can't destroy it, we'll stop it from firing." Hera looked at him, eyes wide. "Sir, you mean boarding it?" He nodded. "Exactly. We get inside, plant the hammerlight core, and overload it from within." A murmur went through the bridge. "That's suicide," one officer whispered. Elias smiled faintly. "Not if it works." The Valkyrie launched toward the monstrous vessel, dodging debris and plasma storms. When it reached the surface, mechanical arms extended, piercing the alien hull. The boarding team, led by Elias himself, entered through the breach. The interior was alive. Walls pulsed like veins, and strange light rippled through the corridors. "Stay close," Elias ordered. "No one wanders off." But the deeper they went, the more they felt the presence of something watching. A distorted voice echoed through the ship. "You came all this way to die inside me." Corran's laughter filled the halls. "You destroyed a planet to stop me, human. Now you'll destroy yourselves." Elias raised his rifle, aiming at the shadows. "You talk too much," he said coldly. "Where are you?" The walls shifted, forming a massive chamber. In the center stood Corran, his body glowing with dark light, his eyes burning like twin suns. "Right here," he hissed. The team opened fire, but the bullets and plasma rounds vanished into the darkness around him. Corran lifted his hand, and a wave of energy threw them all backward. Sparks flew, armor cracked, and alarms screamed. "You can't win," Corran said, stepping forward. "You've already lost everything." Elias got to his feet slowly, blood on his face. "Maybe," he said, "but losing isn't the same as quitting." He reached into his vest and pulled out a small cube, the Hammerlight mini-core. Corran's eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't dare." Elias smiled grimly. "You should know by now, I always dare." He pressed the trigger. The cube glowed bright white, expanding rapidly. Energy surged through the ship like wildfire. The walls cracked, the lights flared, and the entire structure began to shake violently. "You fool!" Corran roared, his voice shaking the chamber. "You'll destroy everything!" Elias shouted over the chaos. "That's the point!" The explosion tore through the ship, ripping it apart from the inside. The Valkyrie's crew barely made it back to the shuttle bay. "Evac now!" Hera screamed. The remaining engines ignited, pushing the ship away from the collapsing vessel. Behind them, the alien structure imploded in a blinding sphere of light. When it vanished, there was nothing left but silence. On Earth, Elena watched the sensor readings go flat. Tears welled in her eyes. "It's over," she whispered. But her relief turned to fear when she realized one signal was missing, Elias's. "Valkyrie, respond!" She cried into the comms. Static answered her. "Elias, come in." Nothing. The room fell quiet as she lowered her head. "He did it," she whispered. "He really did it." Days later, the remaining human fleet gathered near Earth. The sky was calm again, the stars bright. A broadcast echoed through every channel, Elena's voice. "This is Dr. Reeves. The Zorthian threat is gone. The Emperor's ship has been destroyed. Humanity stands free once more." Across the world, people cheered, cried, and prayed. But deep in her heart, Elena couldn't celebrate. She walked to the observation deck, staring into the endless void. "You said you'd rebuild," she murmured softly. "So rebuild, Elias. Come home." Then just as she turned to leave, her console beeped faintly. A transmission, weak but real, cut through the static. "This is Valkyrie." The voice was cracked, fading. "Admission complete. Heading home." Elena froze, tears falling freely now. "Elias," she whispered. "You stubborn, beautiful man." The transmission ended, but the message was enough. Somewhere out there in the endless stars, a single ship drifted slowly toward home, its engines dim but burning steady. Humanity had faced the impossible, stood against extinction, and won. The galaxy would remember this day, not for the war, not for the weapon, but for the will of one small world that refused to bow. And as the stars shimmered over the dark earth, it seemed as if even the universe itself whispered one truth. Humanity endures.